Hello and welcome back to the official Scottish Rugby podcast. I'm Jamie McMillan. With me today I have, as always, Al Killock, Chris Patterson and Lindsay Smith, plus our in-studio guest, John Barclay. On the podcast, John reflects on his 2007 World Cup debut against New Zealand and his time playing rugby in and out of Scotland. John Barclay, welcome to the studio. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. You were out this morning, you said you were doing some coaching, is that right?
I was coaching a women's, girls team from Canada, Ontario, let's call them the Seahawks, something like that, under 16s, and they were very good actually.
Where was that, up at Aki's, did you say? Was it?
Yeah, me and Damien Hoyland took them down went down kind of blind, not knowing the level they would be at. They brought 35 girls over, travelling around Scotland doing rugby stuff, and it was good fun actually. They got stuck in.
See, when it comes to coaching, like obviously coaching women, how much do you have to adapt your skill set? Or is there many changes?
Wait a minute, Lindsay's not going to be happy with this.
Yeah. No, because
Lindsay, get him. What's she asking?
You're dealing with different types of people and different types of game, though, surely.
No, game's exactly the same. You put the same principles of play. You have to do exactly the same skill sets.
I did kind of ask though. I was like, we did all the skill stuff, and then I did actually ask the coaches if they wanted to tackle and stuff. I don't know. And at the time, I thought that's maybe a bit of a daft question, and maybe because I didn't know what they'd been doing, but they loved it.
I think it's more of a perception thing because I'm not close to the women's game and the structure of it. So that, yeah, John understood what I was talking about.
All right, keep digging.
Don't throw me under the bus with you. I had no idea what you're talking about. Women were very good.
John, you were here the weekend for the Wales game. We're all here in some capacity. We've had time to digest that game. How do you sum that performance up?
Disappointing. Just I don't know, in the game, and then 70-odd% possession, 70-odd% territory, and to only score one try it's just frustrating. It kind of felt like the Wales game in the autumn where we dominated possession and just couldn't go over. And their defence is very good. Obviously, they've conceded the fewest points in the Six Nations, but I feel like at the moment we're just leaving too many opportunities out on the pitch.
Felt like from watching that we were a little bit kind of inaccurate at certain stages in the game. Do you think, we had a few injuries early on, which maybe unsettled us a little bit? Do you think that affected the team?
Not really. I actually got asked that by the guys in the studio, asking what impact that has, and it doesn't. Like, sometimes you're actually unaware of changes that are going on the pitch. You're gonna, I know, when we played in that game in 2010, like Mossy lacerated his kidney, and I had no idea, and like Tom broke his neck, no one had any idea, and you're in this bubble and you don't exactly appreciate everything that's going on. But I don't know. I don't know. You think in certain situations, that you just talk about the guys who are missing, and maybe some of those guys would have brought something else, a little bit of X factor perhaps, just to finish some of the opportunities.
The chances were there though, weren't they? I mean, in about 25 minutes of that second half, we had the bulk of the ball and the bulk of the territory. So the disappointing thing, to your point, is the execution of the opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, it's unusual to have that much territorial dominance and possession, and you're like, well, I almost haven't seen a game like that. We just completely camped down in one half and then just with an inability to get over the whitewash. So yeah, I mean, there's lots of positives and in terms of that, obviously controlling the game and playing in the right areas and putting pressure and stuff, but we only scored one try.
I wonder if, actually picking up on the point about the injuries, and one thing I think it did, everyone who came on did really well. Same in Paris. I think the impact of the bench has been really positive from an individual point of view. Where it does hurt you is in some of your structural stuff. So you've got Finn, Peter Horn and Adam Hastings all really, either standoffs, or Peter Horn plays a lot of centre as well, but players who'll be distributors or creative players for others. But then if you've got three players there who are creating, you can naturally take maybe a strike runner out who's more kind of selfish and the lines are run. So sometimes that can have an effect on a team performance, but individually they're outstanding. So that's where the kind of injuries maybe can sometimes disrupt the balance of the team a wee bit. But the guys who come on certainly made an impact, as they did in Paris.
Unusual one with Hamish Watson going on. and then coming straight back off a minute later because he cut himself. So he went on for Jamie when Jamie went off for his HIA, and then he was off the park, and all of a sudden Fraser Brown was running around in the back row. Probably another one we've talked about before. Probably easier when you're seeing the television pictures or you're hearing the commentary. But we were watching the game live and nobody could work out whether they'd actually seen Hamish or not. But then by the end of the game, we saw him come back on later on.
Yeah, talk about an impact player. Moss, when Hamish came on, he just, the name pinball's been thrown around, but just the way that he can just change a game or just also break the game line.
Yeah, he does it every time, doesn't he? No matter if it's an Edinburgh jersey or Scotland jersey, every time we see him play, he's just such an aggressive ball carrier, and he's got loads of different strands to how he carries the ball. I think we pigeonhole ball carriers to sometimes to be big guys who just straight up and down, or you've got a kind of an evasive player who look to use their footwork, but he can do both. Like, he's got the footwork, he's got the power, he's got the strength to actually continue the fight after being hit. How many times does he get hit hard, then wriggle through and burst out? A bit like Darcy as well, similar thing. But what an impact! And you could just see the 2 months or whatever it was of frustration. Having only played one game back, playing Treviso was his first game back after his broken hand, and you just see the desperation to get back and get back involved. But big impact. Literally physically a big impact, and it just tends to bring a smile to your face when you see somebody doing that, doesn't it? It
did. It definitely lifted the atmosphere. But John, when you look at Wales, and you talked earlier on about the fact that it was a frustrating game, they're a frustrating team to play against. They give you a lot of ball and they rely on the defence being so strong.
Yeah, just kick the ball to you.
Yeah.
The frustrating thing for me is I don't know, it's like I don't feel like there's that much respect we see the way Ron Gatland speaks, and it's frustrating to play in a game and dominate and then to not win it, and yet you're trying to change perceptions, you're trying to change this. And I think that I've played down there, I know that the guys in the Scottish team are as good as the guys in the Welsh team, but you don't see that representation in the Lions yet. You haven't seen that pull through, but they're the kind of games I feel like to swing people's opinions, I think. Yeah,
the annoying thing is, though, I agree with you completely, but then you look at the record.
But that's what I was going to say. Like, Wales are obviously going for a Grand Slam this weekend. If they win, they've won 13 on the bounce. And you quantify what a success or what a good team is basically if they win or not, and they win.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how good a team they are, but they're very good at winning, which sounds a wee bit.
They don't play much.
They don't play like, and
no.
That's maybe international rugby. Like,
they don't have many errors either. I think like their error count against. They gave 4 lineups to England. They gave away 3 penalties,
yeah, that was
and I think they had like 2 handling errors.
Yeah.
And they don't miss tackles generally.
So the game's built in defence, and it might be that for all the time you get with a club side, you can do it differently. But for an international side, if you don't have a lot of time, and you do have such a strong defence and such a physical team, and we said it last week, that they don't really want the ball. So maybe that's the blueprint for bringing a team together, keeping it really nice and simple for 5 games in 8 weeks.
Do you think they don't get the credit they're due because of the style they play? I just wonder whether Ireland or England are going for a Grand Slam next week. Everybody's talking them up to be potential World Cup winners. I don't hear that noise about Wales because people aren't maybe underestimating how good they are.
Well, I think they're good at what they do, obviously, and they're successful. They, by definition, if you don't, say, if it's simplest terms, if you don't want the ball and they want to win games through the defence, by definition that's quite reactive. So you're relying on the other team maybe not being as good as you should be, or make mistakes. Now those mistakes are forced by England, by Wales. The reason they win is because they make it horrible. The defence is excellent. They put loads of pressure on, the force errors, and they're good enough to win. But could you do that against a high flying All Black side if you're reactive to how they play, or some of the other big teams and the top of the world ranks if they have a good day? I don't know, but fair play to Wales. It works for them.
But you look at the table as well, though, and I believe it's correct. I don't think they've had any bonus points at all in the seasons either. No. So that's a reflection of the style that they're playing as well. You touched on their defence, but I wasn't outside. But I believe the atmosphere outside was incredible when we had that momentum shift in the second half. Is it just a case of how can Scotland isolate that time of the game where we're playing really well and do that for 80 minutes? How difficult is it to do that at international level?
It's incredibly difficult, as you see out there, but that'll be the biggest frustration for the coaches and for the players, is that we didn't grab those opportunities. You'll go through games and not get chances. You'll go through games and look back at them and say we needed to create more opportunities. We created the opportunities this time, but we just didn't take them. I thought it was a really interesting one with the decisions to kick to touch or to take the points as well. now hindsight's always 20/20, but on 50 minutes we had an opportunity to go within a score, and we didn't take it. We decided to go to the corner, and then 5-10 minutes later we scored a try. But if we build ourselves into the game, would that help us build a bit more momentum? John, you've been out there as captain when Gregor's coaching. How much of that is an on-field decision, and how much of that's coming from the stand?
Yeah, I was watching it, and they put the first one in the corner, and it felt like, I think we scored the try, and then from the kickoff we went straight back up. I think Daly made a break or something happened. We got back up then. It kind of felt like we were camped down there, and I said, I think we'll go to the corner here. Went to the corner, and then we dropped the ball at the back of the maul, I think, and then kind of felt like we got another penalty. We're like, right, the maul's going to put it in again, and then it was like, what point do you then almost start to backtrack and think, right, we need to pick up 3 here? But yeah, it felt like the right decision, and then you feel the momentum of the game, and you feel you've also got to consider when you score, if we'd taken 3, they would have kicked off, and then we're back, then we have to exit, and then they have the ball in our half. So it's not as simple as take 3, then you're 3 up, you still have to exit, and we had so much pressure. I kind of felt like I probably would have done the same. I hoped the referee might have, again, Gregor spoke about it, it's unusual to have that much dominance and that many penalties in that area without a yellow, but yeah, I would have done the same thing, I would have thought.
I had that feeling as well, and when you look back at it now, you think, actually, if you're one of those penalties, obviously say every week you don't get the 3 points for opting to kick a goal, the ball still has to go through and over the bar on a tricky day, pretty windy or very windy, but with the quality we have, you'd expect to pop it over. But I thought it was the right feeling at the time as well, but then when you read certain things and you look at it a wee bit differently from the weekend, you think, actually, for Wales, as nervous as they got in that second half, they would be even more nervous if they were guarding a 1 point lead, no 4 point lead. So 6.5 a dozen, isn't it? And I'm thinking outside the box a wee bit on the similar subject is like, how important is territory? I mean, we all fall into this 70-80% territory possession, whatever, but actually in many ways the closer you get to the opposition line, the harder it can be to score. Like, striking from further out where they've got fewer defenders in the line and having to cover the backfield actually gives you your attack a better opportunity, albeit. So I think sometimes just getting up there at the end of the field and playing the right areas, as we often hear these things said, doesn't necessarily make it easy. It is if you're going to chip away a 3 point and 3 point, but for the way Scotland play, I think that middle kind of space between the 2 10-metre lines sometimes gives their attack a bit more space and a bit more freedom to have a go in. We're
probably better at the moment off unstructured ball, but that's when you've got to credit Wales.
But you say that at the start of the Italy game, the strike plays from our set piece and line were exceptional. Set up tries
against Italy.
Yeah, but you'd imagine that from set piece now at the top level, the analysis that goes in, your set piece defence should be fairly sound.
Yep.
I think it's more down to how Scotland ran those plays than how poor the defence was. I may be wrong, but it was a long time ago. I can't remember.
But the point I was going to make about the Welsh is that where you would traditionally get unstructured plays when somebody's kicking poorly to you or the kick chase isn't there, the Welsh never kick poorly, and the kick chase is always exceptional. Now the way they join in defence, John, when they're chasing that, they'll give you some territory, as we've seen, but they're always structured, so they're always very difficult to break down.
Yeah, I was just thinking about Moss's point that it is sometimes hard to defend close because you get everyone in the line. Generally, you'd be defending against 14. Sometimes leave the dead ball area, but Wales defend with 14 in the front line most of the time now. So they're almost they're just inviting you to kick it, and then you kick and they kick back, and it's almost like, how do you break that cycle with Scotland? Like they're happy to load the front line and say, right, you're not going to come through us, and if you kick to us, we got a fullback who can scramble and clear the ball, and they just keep back in the defence. So I don't really know the answer. I think going to the point Mossy made earlier, I think I thought Adam played really well when he came on, but then like you say, we had 3 distributors, and I think and Blair had gone off, then Tommy went off, so we lost a lot of our sort of strike. And I think they imagine something like Hoggy coming onto the ball when we'd cut defences open and done X number of phases, X number of minutes, someone like Hoggy coming onto the ball or something like that, just to give you that little point of difference.
I think as well the most teams, we had a lot of line breaks. I can't remember. I remember seeing the stat just immediately final whistle. I can't really remember it, but we had like a high number of line breaks, much higher than Wales. But unusually after the line break, I felt as if the Welsh defence was actually stronger than our attack. Like they got really scramble so quickly and get the position so quickly, and that's a I suppose another reason why they win, and another reason why their defence, from either set piece or when the line has been broken, early on especially, Blair got away just outside Jonathan Davis with a couple of good cover tackles, but then the speed of them to reorganise was just exceptional. So it is a tough thing to do to break them down.
So Ireland win the game. Ireland are still, potential champions.
Yeah, well,
Ireland don't. Yeah,
they've got 14. So Wales are top at the moment, 16.
Yep.
And as you say, Jamie, no bonus points. England are second and 15, having been beaten by Wales, but they've scored 3 bonus points. And Ireland third and 14 points. So then Scotland, France, both in 6, and Italy in 0. So will they win? I think at home, it's hard to. I mean, Ireland are the second best team in the world. They're ranked second in the world. They were the form team coming into Six Nations, but you just think at home, Wales, on the run they have, I think the advantage sits with them.
It does. It definitely sits with them. I've got a slight inclination that I think Ireland might turn them over. That's maybe more thinking about how the excitement of the final day might go. But Ireland are due a performance. They were better at the weekend than they've been, but they need to continue to get better. And I can see it next week.
Yeah, the only thing that then even comes in, because it's such a fine margin, is that extra day for Wales. Obviously, Ireland played France on Sunday. They did, because they got ahead, they could afford to take some of the players off and almost with half an eye in the next game week. But as you know, one day can make a big difference in recovery and preparation.
Well, on your point, how you go into the last game of the championship, as far as physically how you condition your players are in, can be a massive determining factor. And that's Scotland at the moment. Again, another few injuries at the weekend. We've got to go to Twickenham, where we've not won in an awful long time, and we've got to go down there with new guys coming in again this week. It's going to make it even harder.
Before we move on to the other fixtures in the Guinness Six Nations, let's just hear from Jamie Ritchie after the game. Jamie, I know that the game's pretty raw just now, but how do you sum up a game like that?
Frustrating, like coming off the pitch. I feel like we had it in us to get the victory. I think especially second half, if we were down in their half for a long time, we were down in their 22 for a long time, and if we got one more score, I reckon we could have held out for a win. It's frustrating obviously, but it's something to build on, especially coming off the back of a poor performance in France. So yeah, huge thing to build on.
There's a lot of positives though, I suppose, you can take from the second half, especially maybe middle of the second half when you guys were really on the front foot and you were just starting to build momentum. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think so. And you just look at our field position. We were right on top of the game, and it's just that final bit of conversion just to get us over the line and get some points. So the thing with Wales is they're in the habit of winning. So unless you get out ahead, it's very difficult to beat.
A great experience for you to get consecutive games of Six Nations though.
Yeah, I mean, I'm loving the opportunity to get to pull on the Thistle, and loving every chance I get to run out here at full BT Murrayfield, or last week was my first experience playing in France. So yeah, hugely grateful for the opportunity, and I'm loving every minute of it.
Also playing at the weekend was England against Italy, a 57-14 win for them at Twickenham, and Ireland a 26-14 victory over France. What did you guys make of those performances?
I thought England again put in a really strong performance, and I think they scored some outstanding tries. So I think Scotland going to Twickenham this weekend, it's obviously a fantastic place to play in, but it's going to be tough. I thought Italy proved again that they can still score tries, even though they're pretty well beaten. But I think England-Scotland this weekend is going to be an interesting one.
Ireland-France yesterday. It was a really interesting game. The fact that France just couldn't get the ball in their own half, could they, for a long period of the game? Did you see the game, Moss, or did you not see any?
So bits of it, yeah. That's what Ireland do, isn't it? They keep the ball.
It just really, I think, and you could see the French getting really frustrated and starting to be a little bit annoyed with the way they were playing. But John, when you're on the pitch and you're having periods of the game where you just cannot get out of your half, how difficult is it, and how mentally draining is it?
Yeah, we talk about Ireland. We played against Scarlets. We played against Leinster in the semi-finals of the Champions Cup, and we just could not get out of our half. They would score 3 points, whatever it was, 7, and then we would kick off. And the way they exited, they'd play the ball to Johnny Segerson, who would put a crossfield bomb up. They would win that on our halfway line, and then they would kick the ball again. And sometimes you just come off and you're like, I have no idea. I'm a forward. I'm just thinking, what can I do here? And I'm just try and tackle someone, but it's just one of those games where that's your decision makers, or more your kickers and your guys who control the game is how you do it. But then teams are like Ireland play that way, and Wales I think have copied a little bit of that in terms of the way they exit in that middle third of the pitch, the crossfield up and unders, and turn it into 50-50 with George North and Josh Allen. These, using the strengths they have. So yeah, that's the reason why teams play that way, is because they know it's a quick way to get the ball back, and it's so hard to do anything against.
John, if you're approaching a game like that, how do you approach it as captain? Do you have like a message you try to get across to your players before you go out to play? You've done your homework on the team, you've done your analysis, the way they play. Is there a certain message you get out to your players, or is it just see what unfolds in front of you?
Catch the ball.
Catch the ball and run.
Yeah, I think it's just a one-on-one, like especially that Mossy would know a lot more about than me, but like that's whole backfield and these 50-50 balls getting in the air, and if you've got someone like who's putting the ball in the right space every single time, and you've got big guys who are clattering in the air, like what can you do? And especially as a forward, you chase the kick off. There's a ruck, and then you wait. I guess maybe you'd look at it and try and pressurise the 10, try and put pressurise the box kicks, which I know Ireland do a lot of, but play off Johnny Sexton as well. But outside of that, is we're in a team game, but you're talking one-on-ones here. And that's where it becomes quite tricky as a captain. We think, well, what can we actually do to change the outcome of what's going on here?
It's funny, it's a buy-in, because we think back to Saturday with us, so to go back to that game, but we did something similar exiting, and Finn hit a really good crossfield bomb. Jamie Ritchie got up and won it, and it went right into Rob Evans' hands. He slapped it back, and you're like, sometimes you need the rub of the green as well, but it is a team thing. So you have the person who's attacking the ball, you have crummers or whatever you want to call the players going past the ball or sitting short of the ball to try and get the deflection. But Jamie did so well, got up, won it. I thought, here we go, and then bounced it to Rob Evans' hands. So there's an element of luck involved as well, I suppose.
So looking at the way Wales play, and we've talked a bit about the way Ireland play, what do we expect from England next week, John?
The exact same. The way they played is they've brought in Manitou Langi and Cocknessing on the wing, and they got some, and the Vunipolos. I know Mac was injured, but they're playing a big power game. It's again like, how do you get the ball? Owen Farrell's similar to Sexton the way he kicks in terms of territorial stuff, but I think Wales got at him quite well in terms of his kicking. So I'd guess you take a bit from that in terms of how we can pressurise him. But they've got quality throughout. I think they've got to keep playing the same way that we tried to play and keep hold of the ball.
What about last year's result? How much of a factor is that going to be? I see Eddie Jones has already come out and started talking about what happened last year, and both probably on and off the field. Do you think that's going to have an influence in Saturday's game?
Maybe. I mean, he's gone on about how I don't know what he was talking about in terms of the specifics, but certainly we didn't forget the way that they'd behaved down there the 2 years before. So I think I know we're talking about short memories, but it's sometimes good to look at what's going on in your own team as well. So I think, look, they would have been pretty disappointed last year as we were the year before, but I don't know. I think he's been quite quiet in the press, so it's maybe a little sort of soundbite for the media or the press to get stuck into. He
doesn't mind a soundbite. Well, are you down yourself? Are you doing some work with the BBC? Or?
I'm going down. Yeah, we've all played there. It's a hard place to go and play. It's going to be a tough one.
They can. I think England are now in the position where last week was more direct and physical. I mean, they're big and physical anyway, but the midfield's key who they pick there. If it is, the power play to Tuilagi and Cognizant on the wing, or it's more like the distribution with kind of Henry Slade in there, or Elliot Dale and these guys striking, Johnny May striking away. They can do either or, England, and with the platform they get up front that allows them to kind of choose what type of game they play against us. I think they'll go power.
Yeah,
I think they'll go route one, and they'll try and bash us. So if we know that's coming, that's just where sometimes you just have to roll the sleeves up, and then when you get the ball you have to be accurate, as you say. Like what would be more frustrating for England if we hit the ball and we just keep a hold of it, just keep it, don't give them the opportunity to get the ball and impose a power play on it. So that skill level, looking after the ball, it becomes really important. So the accuracy, but yeah, it's a big challenge, but it's one that should excite the lads, because they've got an opportunity to really get the lines down and roll your sleeves up and get on with it.
Yeah, I imagine we played the first half next week how we played the second half against Wales in terms of dominating possession territory, and England will obviously be thinking if you're in their camp thinking they can still win the championship, so that's going to frustrate. That's the way to have to keep the ball, have to frustrate them, have to try and force their hand.
But it'll be interesting because by the time we kick off, England will know where they're at. Now, will that have a big influence on it? I don't necessarily believe so. I think there's enough factors in the game. Clearly, if they're going for a championship, it would add to it, but I don't think it will detract from the game itself if they're not. I think it will still be a terrific, aggressive test match.
John's right though. If they're looking at last year, we have to feed off 2 years ago as well. And you don't really want to be driven or by a negative emotion, but that still has to hurt and it has to come into your thinking as you prepare.
And there's also an element of fear there as well, that if you don't go down there and perform, then they're capable, as we saw 2 years ago when we went in very confident, John, they're capable of putting in a big performance. So we've got to go down there with that element of fear, but making sure that we turn that and use it to our advantage.
Yeah, I think it's an individual thing. Like, certainly, building up to last year, that's pretty much all I thought about. Was pretty much for the whole year. That's what I thought about, because that was one of the lowest points of my career. We went down off the back of beating Wales, and it was going to be a big game with Italy in the last round of the Six Nations. So this was the game to tee up, what could have been, huge Six Nations, and then the way it unravelled, that was something that motivated me for a full year. I hope that would still be present within the Scottish boys. There's not that many actually played in terms of because of injuries, but hopefully there's enough boys there that remember how hard that was to go through.
And I think that game as well had much bigger ramifications out with Scotland as well, because it was a Lions the year as well, and Gatland was looking at a lot of Scottish boys, and he came out and said afterwards, Scotland just aren't performing away from home well enough. So that had a big effect, not just in Scotland, but for the boys maybe to go in and kick on the Lions too.
I agree completely. I think there was a few of our boys that had one foot in the plane, and then after that game there was a reshuffle and a rethink about who was going to go, which is, again, to John's point, that adds to the disappointment, because the boys would have known that. John, talking about the Welsh clubs, there's obviously a huge amount happening down there. Have you got any insight into what we might see in the next 6 months or so?
I spoke to some of the boys over the coming week. I saw what was going on, and I thought, right, I started sending a few messages. Then it became pretty clear that I had to, pick up the phone. I phoned one of the boys who's, he says he's probably the fourth choice loose head at Scarlets, and he said, they were told on the Tuesday that it was going ahead. They had messages, they'd been told this is all going ahead, so kind of get your head around it. And he's saying to me, he's like, well, I'm going to be 8th choice loose head at Ospreys or Scarlets, whatever we're called. And basically that was it. There was no way around it. And they said some guys, if they didn't want to go to there, they could go to North Wales, but it's like 4.5 hour drive. It's not. So you're moving your whole family. Your thing is not. It wasn't as simple as that. And then the following day, as you saw, it just had all fallen apart. But when I heard it, I was just like, the terms of the possibility of the merging was just impossible. Like the logistics of it, and to think they could do it 3 months before the end of the year, it was crazy. And I think if it had happened, I genuinely think nobody would have gone to watch them. In terms of nobody from West Wales would have gone to. Something would have happened in terms of no one would have gone down. And there's already a lot of sort of ill feeling about since the game went professional, and Swansea and Neath joined, and the Celtic Warriors were cut, and the tradition of the Scar, and you see the crack, and that what they were doing wasn't the way to help grow the game. It really would, and it specifically would have killed the whole area in terms of Llanelli and West, I think.
This is a real fascinating concept that's happening down in Wales with, those who don't know, potential merger of the Ospreys and Scarlets. Originally it was supposed to be Cardiff were going to merge, and that went off the table. It now sounds like this, what you talked about there, John, the two teams merging, isn't going to happen now. But the effect that will have on Welsh rugby for years to come is huge, isn't it, Al?
The effect that happens in years to come, yes, absolutely massive. But I tell you what you've got to do. You've got to give enormous credit, more credit to what the Welsh national team are doing at the moment. Because a lot of those players are heavily involved in some of the conversations, some of the negotiations. To be able to flip the switch and concentrate then back and put the performances they're putting in, another strength of a row credit to them.
Yeah, I didn't actually feel that sorry for the boys playing on Saturday. I felt more sorry for the guys, like the guys who were the third, fourth choice at their clubs, and then you're merging into a club potentially having a squad of 60, 70 players, and guys I was speaking to were saying, I don't know if I'm playing professional rugby again. I don't know where this leaves me, and guys are off contract, unable to be offered contract because they don't know budgets, they don't know whether there's going to be a team. And you sort of think about the family of rugby, and you think these guys have families, they have children, and that's the sort of bigger picture for me. These guys, the guys in the weekend is disturbing as or unsettling, but the guys beneath that is the ones I'm speaking to, guys that we can't even speak contracts because we don't know if we've got a club next year.
Alan Wynne Jones did a great article on that. I read it last week, and he talked exactly about that. It's far bigger than just the guys that are playing the national stuff. It affects the guys underneath that, if you excuse the term, to a much greater degree. But a lot of those guys who are back at the clubs will be looking to Alan Wynne Jones, to the Ken Owens, to these guys to step up and step into the room for them.
John, you've talked about it a number of times about how much you've enjoyed playing in Wales. So just, on the pitch and off the pitch, you had a great time down at Scars, didn't you?
Yeah, I loved it, and that's why when this was going on, I found it quite saddening that I was only there, not even a year ago, and it was, you're talking about playing in the final of the league, and we played the semi-final Champions Cup, and then you fast forward 9 months, and it seems to have gone, and it was a shame. The way it's been handled, if I was down there, it would be so unsettling. It's an absolute shambles as a player, and we spoke about some of the guys that aren't maybe first choices, but imagine being a foreigner down there, because you'd imagine they'd be the ones that would be the first to fall by the wayside. It's just a shame that it's come about. Hopefully it goes and it settles itself, but it seems like there's obviously something's not quite right in terms of the balance in Welsh rugby.
Let's move back up home now. There was some rep fixtures at the weekend. Under 20s were at Meggetland. Moss, I know you were there. I was there. 27-20 victory over the Welsh Under-20s. We've talked about it before, but this team is getting better and better. I think the biggest challenge they have, Moss, is it's just the time they have together.
Yeah, really good performance on Friday night. Miserable conditions up at Meggetland, blowing a gale, pouring the rain, but the Scottish guys dealt with the conditions really well in the opening 10-15 minutes. Put Ross Thompson on standoff and put the team in a good position early on the field, and then forced an error from the first line out for Conor Boyle to score, and then forced an error for Scotland to get a scrum 5 metres out for the second try, and Rob McCallum scored. So to get ahead on a night like that was really important, and the Welsh lads just then tried to chase the game, and it wasn't a night for playing too much rugby. They tried to chase it, and the Scottish defence was outstanding. It was similar almost to what Wales did here. They're outstanding. The physicality of the defence was excellent. It's 27-6 I think once they scored just before half time and just after half time. 2 late tries conceded will be frustrating for Scotland's point of view. I thought the Welsh bench made a difference. Bairstow, the 10 that came on was pretty special, but the Scottish lads playing together for 4 weeks in a row now makes a massive difference. The time together, the exposure to the higher level of opposition 4 weeks in a row has really helped them, and they'll go down to Northampton this weekend to play England at Franklin's Gardens. Always a big ask, but with a lot more confidence and a lot more belief than before the Welsh game.
I was speaking to Carl Hogg, the head coach, on Saturday, and he was talking about the sessions they've done with the Scotland team. So Scotland Under-20s have been training generally once a week against the national team, and the point he was making is the level of training has just gone up and up and up, and that's been seen with the performances they put in. They win the game. There's probably a few lessons Mossy learnt about taking the foot off the gas, maybe potentially.
No, I don't think so. I think it was a really difficult night weather-wise. It was not only wet but really, really windy, and they played kind of with the wind. If there was a team with it, it would be more favouring them in the first half. And I genuinely, meant what I said, that the Welsh bench made a big difference, more than us taking the foot off the gas. But we scored early, got them to chase the game, and then scored just before and just after half time. And there's so many quality players that came off the bench and played for Wales. They're going to get their time in the game, but you don't, as a Scotsman, want them to get their time in the game. But internationals, even at under-20, that will happen, and their time was late on.
Good on them. They've been working so hard over the championship to deserve that one.
We can hear from Carl Hogg now after the game.
Yeah, just delighted for the players. They've obviously been sort of 5-6 weeks in camp now, and it's a combination of a lot of hard work. There's been glimpses in previous games of how well we can play, and I thought for that first 75 minutes we looked an excellent side. We did the simple things very well, defended well for long periods of time, and we managed the game, especially with the wind, and the players got the just rewards. But they trained extremely well this week, and that's a product of their hard work.
Carl Hogg there, reflecting on the 27-20 victory. John, just go back to 2005. I believe you were captain the under-19s in Durban. Is that correct for your?
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. What's your memories of that game?
I don't know if I was. I was dropped halfway through as captain, so I can't remember.
I think you're under-19s captain in Durban.
What was in Durban? Was that the World
Cup? It was a World Cup, yeah.
Yeah, very insensitive, Jamie.
Pictures man of the match, John. When we're looking back, you can remember that.
Huh?
Stirling under schools. You're playing for Dollar at the time.
Yeah, Dollar versus Merkston.
And we had to pick the man of the match, and I chose you. So I generally take credit for most things you've done in the back of that.
So you founded him, did you?
Yeah.
Brought him to the eyes of
Rambo showed
selectors.
me a photo of me giving him his under 18s.
Makes you feel
captain.
old, eh?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
He's only 2 years younger than me.
Because we're a similar age, you know.
No, absolutely not.
To be fair, once you got that man of the match for the school, you were with the national squad about 3 months later, wasn't it?
And bigger than everybody else
right.
already.
Yeah,
How was that? How was that? The first involvement. I remember it was Matt Williams as the coach, wasn't
Yeah.
17 years old.
he? And he came in straight from school. That'd be easy.
I went out the night before and I got a phone call. So I didn't know. I'd just been out. I was
When you say out, you were at school, so just
I was out getting some
restaurant,
shopping.
yeah,
some
okay.
shopping. And I got a phone call from, it may have been Graham Law, but I didn't know Graham Law at this point, or someone from the union saying, "John, you're in the Scotland squad." And I thought, wow, brilliant. And it was the 21s. I thought it was the 21s of, I didn't even think. And then they phoned again and said, "Oh, you need to come through to Murrayfield today. You and Gordon Bullock are doing." And still, I'm thinking, why are the 21s launching their autumn campaign with the camp? And then I went through, and it was a bit of a nightmare. It was amazing, but like I rocked up and put my bag down, and then I'd put it in Simon Taylor's space, so he removed it. I came back, my bag was in the corridor. I was like, oh, thanks, brilliant.
17.
Yeah, it was, and then I shared a room with. I was going to like hotels, and we were at Dalmahoy, weren't we? And I think I shared with, I don't know, JP maybe, or JP. And it was weird. These were like the guys I'd watched, literally a couple of months before on TV, and like never, I thought I'm just going to start out playing professional rugby, and then 3 months later. Maybe not the best thing looking back.
We've got much more of that to touch on later on, but just before we do that, I just want to quickly reflect on the women's game. Scotland won 15, Wales won 17. Really frustrating result, considering the fact that game was within their grasp, wasn't it?
Yeah, like last minute, there was like a sustained period of pressure from Wales on their try line, and defensively they put in such a shift, but unfortunately Wales found a gap, and they lost out by 2 points just in the final minute. So I don't know if you've seen any of the pictures that have been going around, but absolute kind of heartbreak from some of the girls. So I really felt for them. But I thought there were some really standout performances from people like Lana Skeldon. She's been consistent throughout. Really strong ball carrier, kind of ran the set piece for the team as well. But also people like Jenny Maxwell, who came off the bench and made a bit of a difference on Friday night. She kind of upped the pace, upped the intensity a little bit. And then I think most of our tries have been through the forwards so far in the Six Nations, but it was nice to get Chloe Rowley got her first of the campaign, which was good, through the hands, the backs, and she was in the corner. But I thought they were going to hold on for a win, but unfortunately not.
I was there at Scotstoun Friday night, and it was tough conditions. There was a few breakages as well for the injuries, and you could see the girls almost huddling for warmth at times. That almost makes it harder to lose a game as well, or tougher to lose a game, because it's been such a tough physical game. The chances were there for Scotland to win it. I was at 10-all at half time. There was a strong wind, as there quite often is at Scotstoun, and to go in at 10-all at half time, I thought it was great. I thought we were in a really good place. The wind died a little bit. We probably
actually just before half time as well, Wales had a try disallowed. I think their 8 had knocked it on. Yeah,
although the scrum had gone round and they scored the try, it was probably a penalty to Wales, but we got in and it was 10-all. Came out in the second half and probably didn't kick the ball enough. We probably didn't use that wind, use the terrace. It did drop a wee bit, but it was still there, and we started trying to play from deep, which then gave the Welsh a couple of opportunities. And credit to them in the end, but that's a tough way to lose a game.
We look at next week though. They're heading down to Twickenham. They're going to play after the men. They've done it a few years ago, I know, but for a newer squad, what an occasion for them, Linz, and what would that mean to them to play in such an iconic arena?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge experience. You're going to a massive stadium. Some of the girls won't have played in a stadium that big before, or in front of a crowd that large. So I think it's really important that they focus on the game and try and kind of not play the occasion. But that'll be hard to do if you're kind of young and a bit kind of less experienced. But that's where they'll start to look to their kind of leaders and their older players who have experience playing in stadiums, week in, week out. So I think it'll be a tough job, and it might be a bit intimidating for some of them, but I think it's a great opportunity for them to show what they can do.
We touched on it earlier on, John. You're 17 years old. You came into that camp environment. 2007 is when you made your debut for Scotland against New Zealand in the World Cup. What was that like for you to debut in a World Cup?
I don't think I realised in terms of the impact of it. I think I just kind of been swept along since I was 17, and then it's probably only now I see how special the World Cup is. So I was kind of in the squad. It was a really weird one to be part of, though, because there was a definite 23, and then there was the rest. There was the sort of mixed veg, as we were called, where the guys that weren't going to play, and it was the same guys every week. And that was the way it was. We had a very settled team then, and it was the World Cup where basically we knew if we beat Italy, we were in the quarterfinals. So, and we had a 5-day turnaround, I think, after the All Blacks game. Yeah. So we were kind of put together to play the All Blacks. It was, on the one hand, it was like my dream, I was going to get to play at Murrayfield like playing against my heroes, Richie McCaw, and they went out fully loaded. But we had like one training session together, and we're kind of thrown together. But in terms of the occasion, like the first time I think the whole thing builds for the week, but the whole time of like getting, I always say, like when you get to Murrayfield, that first time you get on the bus in and you get piped in, and the first time you go into the change room it still gives you goosebumps. So the whole occasion was was amazing for me to be part of that and to get my cap. And I didn't feel that young, but I was 20. It was a long time ago now, but it was the result was we were always going to be up against it. I think I don't know, it was 40-0 maybe
42-0 I think
42-0
no 40-0 you're right
40-0 yeah they probably should have scored more. You missed one, Moss. You missed a penalty.
I missed it. I actually got a head knock.
You played 10.
I played 10. I remember the opening, like we actually had possession for the opening a few minutes, and it was strategic. It was all right, just go at them, like one side then the other, one side the other, just one out the rack, just keep going, like just take them on almost physically. Oh my God, but it didn't go well, did it?
I remember we kicked off to them, they box kicked back. It was like being in a car crash, upside down. And then I thought, right, I'm gonna get into the game here. I'm gonna carry the ball, and I ran into Rodney Soallo and Jerry Collins, and I literally got spat out the back of this rock, and I was just like, maybe this isn't the game for me.
Masoe must have been another back row, was it?
Yeah, McCaw was there. Masoe, or maybe it was Masoe and someone else really big.
There was also another debut for somebody in that game as well, along with Barclay. Dicko, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Was that the game where both strips were really similar?
Oh yeah. They had they had that silver.
Yeah, and we had an alternate kit on as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it was
we had home on, but it was kind of like dark grey.
Yeah, because I remember watching it on TV, and it was really hard, especially at scrums. And
it was the kind of webbing on the jersey, wasn't the kind of non-grip or the non-slip grip stuff on the shoulders, and it's quite on the chest. It was quite kind of grey on TV, but. Yeah, we can't call that one a doing.
Yeah, that's why we lost. Clutching at straws here.
Just looking at the team, Al, it was Big Jim was in the starting lineup. I didn't see you involved in that game. Were you injured or were you?
No, I wasn't selected.
He's the mixed veg.
Not even mixed veg.
Oh,
bin juice.
That was a good one.
Bin juice.
Enjoyed that.
Well, that's awful.
That's what they're called now, the bin juice. That's the name that I've heard since I got.
To be fair though, that what you had to do after that, it was a Sunday, wasn't it? So I think it must have been a 6-day turnaround, and it was obviously at Murrayfield.
To get back to France.
And we had to get back to France, to get back to St Etienne to play the decider effectively on the Saturday night, I think.
Yeah. Sunday to Saturday.
Saturday, yeah. So the 6 day plus a travel day, and I mean, on about pressure, the pressure in the lead up to that game was fairly substantial, but that's one you kind of had to win. And I remember, well, John as well. I felt quite embarrassed in that game because all the media and all the report was, it's Scotland's second team. Like, how dare you? Like, we're actually representing our country. Yeah, there's a game in 6 days' time, but I was embarrassed to see, like, people making out as if it was a second team. It wasn't.
That's changed now. I don't think you get that as much.
No, it was just rotation then, but it was new.
Yeah.
There was some chat. I remember the World Cup 2015, the South Africa game, that kind of crept in a little bit with the press pushing the line of, this is a B team, and it is actually really disrespectful because if you're chosen for Scotland, you're chosen for Scotland on merit. There's no A and there's no B team. So I get your frustration around that. It's really, really disrespectful.
It's very much a squad thing now. Like you take players in and out, but yeah, it was done differently and handled differently, and even the messages we put out internally or from an internal point of view weren't right. But now we talked about, we're putting out a team that can win the game.
It is physically draining as well, mentally. for you during the Six Nations? Because I think a lot of people don't take into consideration all the kind of off-field work that players do, and being in that environment of, you know, a Scotland camp, it can be quite hard on you. And I think that's the bit that people maybe from the outside don't see as much. Yeah.
Okay, it's this thing you've got to be careful, because people then will turn around and say, "Oh, well, you know, I'm in the office, or I'm doing this and that." And that's not the whole point of the discussion. It's elite sport, and it's I almost found the mental side of it harder, because the pressure and the expectation, especially on the team, is so vast now and so big. And when you underperform, especially look at last year against 2 years ago rather, against England down there, the emotional sort of ride you go on is really tough on yourself and on your family, and you have to. The guys that weekend would just be still gutted and crushed from the game at the weekend against Wales, and now today they have to switch to England, and then it's just non-stop.
You get better at dealing with that? You get better at switching off as you get older?
I think so, yeah. I think the stuff, having family and having a bit of perspective is really important, but I actually found, even like last year, the first game against Wales, I just found it just so hard to go home. You don't sleep for a couple of days, you just sort of crushed by and I actually find that side. I used to, after all games, go home and sleep, no worries. And I think the older I got, maybe the harder I found to sleep after a bad game, and that lingers for a bit longer.
Just trying to switch off, that's quite difficult, isn't it? Because you're still thinking about what went wrong, how can we make it better.
Definitely.
And is that one potential benefit of, I mean, you've been out for 10 months, you would clearly not want that, but are you coming back now mentally fresh, desperate to get back onto that park? Yeah,
it's funny. I trained with Scotland last week, and you could sort of see they were a bit sort of bruised from the France game, mentally and physically, and for me, I spent 9 months in the gym, in the dark gym.
It's showing. You're looking great.
Thank you, Alistair. Very kind. You're looking great too.
You are sitting between Al and Mossy.
But yeah,
you look great too, though.
Yeah, I'm just loving just getting back out. It's compared to being out, and the ability to have a prolonged rest is. I'm hoping it's going to prolong the career a bit.
What's harder, looking after your three boys, or being at training in the gym for 9 months?
Definitely the former. I'm how tiring are kids.
You survived the soft play centre yesterday.
Yeah, I'm like, jeez, give me a training session.
It's no good for the back, the soft play.
It's carnage crawling through it.
You spent 40 minutes.
Al, do you fit in with soft play?
Stuck.
I once went to the soft play and I lost my daughter. She was 3 years old and couldn't find her, and I had to take myself at 6'8" and whatever.
I just never got it.
And I had to go through every tunnel and every bit looking for my 3-year-old.
Was she hiding on you, or was she just? You just couldn't
I'm panicking. At this stage, I'm gone. And then she was potty training at the time, and she'd taken herself to the toilet, and she came back, and I didn't know whether to be angry or But it was just relief that I didn't need to go home and tell her mother that I'd misplaced her.
I had to try and catch Logan once, who was 2, and he would. We just let our kids go in there with the parents and just stay down and just let them create carnage and just don't pay attention. And we went up, and he was fully naked, not potty trained, just tearing. And then again, where
did he learn this from?
Yeah, exactly. It was absolute mayhem.
To your point about letting them go, sometimes you're better not seeing what they're doing.
Yeah, just leave them.
Order the flies, on you go, and we'll see you in an hour.
John, 71 caps for Scotland, 64 starts and 30 points. What are some of the key games that stick out for you when you look back at your time so far?
Probably what was the first game of the 2014? When I got back involved. After I was out, sort of not picked for a few years, and to get back involved was a big one for me. Just as I don't remember which game it was in particular, so I'm not probably giving you the best example. But
when you 2014,
yeah,
I've got the book.
Get the book out, Jamie.
It was either Wales or England.
Come on, Jamie. No idea. Come on, Jamie. Find the page.
I don't think it was up to 2013. My book.
It's useless.
Buy
it back for the next volume.
Yeah, buy a new book. And why are you using a book? What's wrong with it?
Old school.
I just like having a book. It's tangible.
It's tangible.
It's tangible. It's got Jim Hamilton in the front as well.
That's because he was the 1000th cap.
Oh no, we've covered that.
There was a period, John, where you had a time away from Scotland. Was that a real difficult time in your career, and how happy were you to get back?
I thought you were going to say how happy I was to not be picked. You made it sound like a choice. You had some time away from Scotland. Yeah, it was. I think if I'd been playing in Scotland, I would have found it much harder. but I was in Wales, away from the bubble, and really enjoying my rugby. So I think after about a year or so, I kind of resigned myself to the fact I didn't think I could play much better at that point in my career, and I was like, well, maybe this just isn't going to happen for me. You know, horses for courses, and sometimes it didn't fit. But yeah, thankfully, Al asked me earlier about if I found dealing with poor performances easier or harder since I've got older. But I think non-selection I found a bit easier. Like, I just got on with it. I kind of had to take a more philosophical view to it, and I've got kids, and that's definitely kind of like kids and family and that sort of stuff made that non-selection much easier. We only had one at the time, but it was tough. But I always had the desire to play, but I just almost resigned myself that it wasn't going to happen for a while.
Do you think it made you a better player overall because you gave all your time to Scarlets, you gave more time to the game itself, not having to think about other distractions?
Maybe. I think the year that I wasn't, the year before I got picked again, if that makes sense, was probably the best I'd ever played in my career. I don't know what year that'd be, but yeah, I couldn't have played better, and I still wasn't getting picked. So that's kind of when I thought, this is maybe it. But I think being involved with different players, different mindset, different coaches, different culture was really positive for me, and I was lucky to be part of a squad that very much transitioned and grew year on year. From when I first went, we kind of finished sixth, and by the time I left, we'd won the league. We were finalists of the league the following year, and we were in the semi-final of the Champions Cup. So I think there's a lot of luck involved in when you move clubs, and I think I was sort of right place, right time.
Mossy, you played a bit of one season away from Scotland as well. For you as well, what was that like? And as a player, how did it affect you when performing for Scotland?
You just get on with it. Like, sounds a terrible answer, but whatever challenge is placed in front of you, you just get on with it. The difficulty for me when I went to Gloucester was it was immediately after the 2007 World Cup, so I missed the pre-season, the early season. I missed about 4 or 5 league games, and then I kind of fought my way into the side, and then Six Nations came along, and then you're away and back, and I remember a poor game in one of the final weeks away against Bristol, and it was pretty difficult at that time because you never really felt truly part of it. So I think what John's saying, and what you're saying to John, actually having the Scarlets and that was probably really good for you. You commit totally to it. But whatever challenges have ahead of you, you go on with. I'd say you, John, as well. You're obviously very fond of your time in Wales. They were very fond of you, but now you've moved back up. And we don't often ask this question, but what would you miss about Wales? Is there something you miss that you...
Careful how you answer this, John.
Well, just because you've been so fond of it, and they really appreciated what you committed to them, and it sounds like a really good period in your career.
I miss. It's hard because I've not played for Edinburgh, so it's a hard question to answer. But I really miss the people, and not just the players, like the
community spirit.
The community was, and I kind of heard that about Wales, but it's hard to sort of explain when you live. I lived in a small village about half an hour from Llanelli, and I was just very much part of the community, and it was maybe easier for me because I was a Scottish person in Wales, so I wasn't sort of hammered by them too much. But I really loved the community, and we lived in a nice part of Wales, and probably the sort of community, and everyone wanted you to do well. It was the expectation was there, and they got frustrated when you didn't win, but they also kind of backed you. Very similar to the Scots, they just kept backing you no matter what.
The Edinburgh boys welcome you with open arms, or was it still a bit of a hangover the fact that you were Glasgow for how long were you Glasgow?
9 years.
9 years.
Yeah.
Just going back to the Killer Bees, that was a special time.
It didn't last very long, did it?
No. There was the Worker Bee, which was you. There was Bumblebee, which was Kelly Brown, and then there was Mel Bee, that was Johnny Beattie.
Kelly tried to use that joke at the Bill McLaren dinner, tried to turn it into because I was there to make a fool of me. I was like, Kelly, just use Johnny, he's not
Did
here.
you guys call yourselves the Killer Bees, or was this something that came out of the media first?
That's all we called each other.
That's who started it.
Was it actually, or was it you?
John used to run around going bzzz.
So embarrassing. We went to New Zealand in the 2011 World Cup, and we did not play well. And someone wrote one of the headlines was "So much for the killer bees, more like the mildly annoying moths." And I thought that's nice.
I see that stuck in. You hold the guns, John.
Not much a ring to it, is it?
Yeah, I just read it once and didn't care. Didn't really
You've
bother
never
me.
thought of it ever since.
Scrapbook.
Richie Vernon ruined it, didn't he? Because it was Johnny Beattie was signposted to be the player to watch for Scotland at 2015 World Cup, and then Richie Vernon got selected. The wannabe. That was right. He was the 4B. The wannabe.
What was your first memories of John in and around Glasgow?
Oh, it was dreadful.
Well, obviously you spotted him at the schools game.
Yeah, after I'd found him, it was terrific. I mean, John was probably one of the first of the. What happens now? These guys come out of school at 17 and 18, physically ready to play the game. That didn't happen back then. It was very unusual. But John, when you watched him playing for Dottler in that game I'm talking about, it was like a man playing schoolboys rugby. Hence the reason he was in the Scotland squad so young. So physically he was straight in. Now John's always been a leader as well. Ever since he was a young guy coming through, give him responsibility and he did brilliantly. Now it was his responsibility to look after Kelly and to look after Johnny as well. But he came in. There was Donny McFadden was there, Johnny Peachy was there, guys who were experienced in that position, but they grabbed that jersey pretty quickly just because of the way he carried himself on and off the park.
I think as well, like, not to embarrass him, but he had a skill that not many back rows in Scotland had at the time or were very adept at, that was beginning to take hold in world rugby, and that was the kind of steal the jackal, getting over the ball. Because that would be probably, my first memory was this guy's amazing over ball. He can win you it back, but he can still link, he can still play. And it was something that we traditionally we were slow to adapt to, really. That almost that George Smith type role for the older members of the audience. He kind of transformed the game where he was able to win turnovers. And John, you brought that, which is it's quite difficult. It's merely a bigger, more physical role. Certainly an older, more experienced person at the time would adapt that role. But for this young kid to come in and just like steal ball and get in and get brave and get away again was something that we didn't have. And John brought that even as a 18, 19-year-old.
He also brought a bit of edge. He's
a bit grumpy though.
He's always grumpy, and he was grumpy at training, and he used to cause he used to fight everybody. He'd fight his shadows, causing all sorts of trouble at training all the time. But that probably helped his game as well. Agree, John? You remember all the trouble you used to cause?
No, I remember you trying to fight me once.
Yeah, I remember
that
hitting you and being surprised that you hit back.
Game's moved on, guys.
Yeah, it's not about fighting at training.
You touched on George Smith there, but who was your inspiration growing up, John? Who did you look up to? Who did you idolise, apart from Al Kellogg?
Yeah, it was probably George Smith and Richie McCaw. So to play, that was like Mossy spoke about that was the part of my game I always tried to have as one of my strengths. And the game was kind of changing around like 2001. That George Smith came in, he was doing the way he was doing it, and the game was changing a bit. And I remember coming in, and Donny was probably the only other one sort of trying to play like that way, and the game kind of probably actually held me back a little bit in terms of I focused so much on that side of my game, and almost I don't have to do the attacking stuff as much. And now it's very much almost everyone's doing everything in terms of the way the game's played.
So, John, you talked about the attacking part of the game there. You've played an awful lot across the back row. You started out purely as a 7, but you've played an awful lot of 8 and 6 as well. Now, is that because you've added to your game, or has it always been there?
I think I played the first, maybe 9 years almost only at 7, and then went to Scarlets, and then James Davis emerged after a year there, and that we kind of became a sort of case of they wanted to have their best 15 players on the pitch, and I was only a 7 at that point. But the way Scarlets played, they just have their loose forwards in the wide channel. It didn't really matter 6, 7 or 8. So just by that very nature of that, it allowed me to play a bit of 8. And then I guess and I came back here, and Hamish probably through sort of not sort of by plan, more by accident. Hamish came, and other guys were emerging, and I think you get a bit older, you get a bit, you sort of change. I think when I played originally for Scotland, I was about 98 kilos. I'm, probably 10 kilos heavier now, so you can sort of move around a little bit more across the back row.
You'd have got grumpy when you were younger if somebody said you were playing anywhere else but 7.
Probably, yeah. I was grumpy at most things.
Do you have a preference now, if you had to pick?
No, I don't care. People ask, I don't actually really mind, to be honest. I think I always say if someone expects me to play differently because I'm playing 8, and is almost crazy. You know, I can't play like, you know, Billy Vanapoel. I just have to play how I play, and the way Gregor plays quite suits my game. It's kind of just all action all across the pitch. Doesn't matter. You're not told to hold specific lanes or channels, so it doesn't really bother me. 7's, you know, a bit more tiring, I'd say, in terms of your roles, but yeah, as long as I'm playing now, it's just the prospect of playing is quite enticing.
Anywhere the coach picks you is what you're saying?
Effectively, yeah.
Right. Okay. Get that to Gregor.
Not 4 or 5.
Now, earlier on today, John, we reached out on Instagram to the fans to send in some questions. So, Linz, I think you've got the list of some there.
Yes, we've got.
Do you find out who they're from? Sorry.
Yeah, I do.
Oh, okay,
I've got some names as well.
Okay, excellent. Here we go.
Okay, so we've got one from Stuart. He would like to know
Stuart
if you. It doesn't say.
Okay, excellent.
If you were not a rugby player, what would you like to have done? And that's from Stuart.
If I had any choice in the world right now, I probably. We were talking about this the other day in the gym, actually, what we would do. It was actually what sport would we play. And I said Formula 1 driver, and then someone said being a surfer would be pretty cool for just the lifestyle. But realistically, that wouldn't have happened. So I was in line to go to study medicine.
Surf in Scotland?
You can surf in Wales. I surfed in Wales, but I think I was going to go to medical school in Glasgow before I signed with the Warriors. So that would probably be where I'd be now.
Nice. Mossy, if you weren't a rugby player, anything you'd like to say?
I've often thought, I studied as a PE teacher, so anything sporty, but I've often quite fancied being a postman. Basically.
Would you have a van, or would you be?
I'd walk.
That's because he always delivers.
I'm not I'll not go down that cliched route. I'll leave that to you.
Adam would like to know, how do you think Scotland will perform at the World Cup?
Big question. Who's in our pool again?
Japan, Russia.
I'm joking. I know who it is. Ireland, Japan, Samoa,
Russia,
and Russia. And Ireland is our first game.
Ireland first.
I actually think the way the Six Nations gone can work to our advantage a little bit. I think I hope we can sort of come in a little bit more under the radar. Hopefully by then we'll have a full squad to pick from. You know, everyone looking at the injury list and length, the sort of predicted times out should be fit. We should be loaded, ready to go. So I'm really excited. Like I missed the last World Cup. This will, you know, definitely be my last one if I'm lucky enough to get there. So like the Six Nations, you start well and you can really tee yourself up. So we've got Ireland, and the hosts at home is going to be a tough game. But you know, if you have aspirations to do well, you have to be comfortable to knock off those two.
And obviously you've got experience of playing in Ireland because we play them regularly in the Six Nations, so homework can be done on them pretty early doors.
I hope so.
Who's on the phone?
Do you want to answer
My wife.
that? No, we won't take it from him. That would be if it'd been somebody else, and maybe.
Nathan would like to know who's been the favourite player you've shirt swapped with.
Favourite player I've shirt swapped with?
Or has there been anyone you've asked to swap shirts with and they wouldn't?
Yeah,
does that
actually,
happen?
Yeah, it did happen once actually. It's funny, we were talking about earlier, in my debut, Richie McCaw wouldn't swap shirts. Yeah, what a scumbag.
I thought he was a hero.
Yeah, my hero to zero. No, I went through it, I was like, just, yeah, a bit intimidated, but he said because they'd never worn that jersey before and they were never going to wear it again, that I don't know, maybe he's going to sell it or something, maybe worth some money. I'm sure he didn't need the money.
Okay. Isla would like to know, who was your inspiration or role models out with rugby when you were growing up?
Outside rugby, I don't know why, it's obviously showing my age now, but I used to watch a lot of Michael Jordan VHSs about his injury and stuff. Yeah, that's a videotape for anyone who doesn't know.
Mossy's
Mossy knows.
No, I had a Betamax.
Lastly, can you describe the feeling you get when you walk out onto the pitch? And that's from Alistair.
Another serious question. Honestly, I'd say I struggle not to cry every time I run on the pitch. I don't know, it's just something like, and even like coming into the stadium, like now it's all, it's I don't know, but they've designed it that way, but it's sort of absolutely packed, the sort of the stairs and stuff. And I think when you run out of Murrayfield now, it's, you know, especially as special, it's the thing I'll miss most about when I decide to retire. And it's, I think, something you can't ever buy, you can never recreate that to someone. I think I think when it stops being special for you, that feeling, and that's maybe a sign that you shouldn't be playing international rugby anymore.
Yeah, then you'll sit in the stand and cry.
Well, yeah, exactly. I think there's a lot of emotion in Murrayfield, like in the anthems and stuff. I think with the second verse.
Second
So,
verse
yeah,
comes,
and
yeah.
that you can feel emotion, especially the last couple of years. You can feel the emotion in the stadium. Yeah.
Perfect. I've had one just come in from a guy called Jim. He's a big fan of the show, and he would like to know, John, why are you so miserable?
It's Jim Hamilton.
It's Jim, yeah.
I learned from the best.
There you go, Jim. You heard it here first.
I've got a question for you, John. When will we see you back playing rugby?
Soon. Very soon. But not this weekend.
John, we had Ryan Wilson on a few weeks ago, and he was telling a story in Fiji, that tour you had a few years ago. I think you guys were sharing a room, and did he wake you up with some guests? Is that right?
Yeah, I remember it sort of end of season, and I remember I woke up and Ryan had invited the entire Fijian escort and police force back. And I looked up and one of them had my mouth guard in. One of them was wearing the clothes and underpants I'd worn that day, and I was like, and I think they actually ended. One had my kilt on, and I left with genuine. I think we came with about 24 kilos, and I left with about 6 kilos. Most of it was gone by the end of that night.
But Ryan, somebody that you got on really well with, and the question that actually somebody asked me earlier on was, perception of you two are polar opposites. Do you think that's what makes you two so close, the fact that you are very different, or would you say that you and Ryan are quite similar?
I think we're similar in a lot of ways. Mossy's laughing. I think you've got a facade maybe that you have for certain things. I think I'm quite different behind closed doors to what I am sort of outwardly. Yeah, I don't know. I something you speak to the Edinburgh guys. I always made a point of speaking with the younger guys. Ryan's not necessarily a younger guy, but I look at Edinburgh now, some like Magnus or Blair, and I try and Lewis Carmichael, these sorts of guys, try and make sure I'm not too far out of what's going on.
Do you understand what they're talking about?
Not really.
Is this to keep you in the loop?
Yeah, a bit. Yeah, I think it must be.
So what you're saying is you're not as grumpy as everybody thinks you are.
I don't think so. I don't know where that's come from. You started that.
No,
you were quite grumpy.
Yeah.
No.
Sometimes. Mossy's grumpy. Mossy's probably the grumpiest.
Yeah.
Tommy Seymour would be up there.
What's wrong with that? Like,
no, nothing. Calm down.
Good.
We're on the Seymour category. Surely not. Jeez.
But you like to mess about as well, don't you? You're not mess about at the right times. Like you like to jump out behind doors and scare Hoggy and stuff like that.
I like to have fun. I definitely think there's like a thing. You've got to be serious at the right time, and I think the thing that probably annoys me most is when there isn't that clear line. But yeah, I actually think going away from Glasgow helped me with that. Like I had to the Welsh are pretty ruthless with the way they, it was very much sink or swim when I landed there, and it was I think I got on well with the boys, but they were cut through. You think you've heard some pretty ruthless stuff.
And do you get that balance right at Edinburgh? Is that tough because you've not been on the park yet, but the balance between the grumpy old serious guy and the guy who wants to have fun?
I think so. I've not been on the pitch very much, so I've actually tried to be as relaxed as I can off the pitch, because it's been an opportunity to me not be too serious. I think it's serious enough, and training games are serious enough, so I've managed to just sort of try and keep my being injured, try and keep it fun, try and have a laugh with the guys that are injured. Certainly we had a good group of we got a group called the Grafters, which is the long-term injured guys, and I think being able to laugh when you are pretty down with injury has actually helped. Someone like Damien Hoyland, Lewis Carmichael, Magnus, these guys have all been in that group, and I think we've helped each other.
Is there anybody stands out as a class clown? Anybody above it all else? Is it Ryan Wilson or
Ryan? Yeah,
Dougie Mills.
Dougie Mills. Yeah, there's a few down in Wales.
Dougie Mills is kit man for Glasgow. I think we've talked about it before, but he was a guy always causing trouble, always taking people's underpants out of the bags and putting them in the carousel on the way around in the airport. Or
used to massage people with jam on their first away trip, and the bits, and he said it was exfoliating massage oil.
The chocolate button trick. Did you get that?
Chocolate button down your bum crack. Your first massage. All the good stuff.
John, it's been brilliant having you here in the studio. Thank you very much, and best of luck with the recovery. Looking forward to seeing you again soon.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Great to have John Barclay in the studio with us, and great to hear that he's going to be coming back into the mix pretty soon. Now, it'll be great for Edinburgh to have a player like John back in the team.
It'll be massive. He'll be like a new signing because he's been away for so long. I mean, injured at Scotstoun 10 months ago in his last game for the Scarlets. Not only for Edinburgh though, if he carries the same form that he had before he got injured, then it will be brilliant ahead of the World Cup. He's a guy that will slot straight back into that back row, and probably bring something slightly different. But yeah, terrific to have him back in the park.
It's amazing to think that he didn't actually go to the World Cup in 2015 either. He missed out.
I know he talked about his time in the wilderness. No, I had a fair amount of that as well. But I think John's point about being away and being in Wales, and that helped him concentrate on his rugby, on his club rugby. And it was a great answer. He talked about the fact that he just concentrated on playing as well as he possibly could, and then controlled the controllables. And when the selection came, he'll grab it with both hands. Best
luck, John, on your return to action. One thing we didn't touch on earlier on was the Scotland Sevens who are playing in Vancouver. I think, guys, we've been casting a few eyes over the results. A bit of a mixed campaign for the boys, but Lindsay, you've got some details on the games, haven't you?
Yeah, a bit of a mixed bag again, I think. We'd mentioned last week we need to get a little bit better at starting well. So we came up against England and Argentina in the first two games, and unfortunately lost out in both those fixtures. But they then kind of turned it around and went on to beat Japan and Chile and make it into the final of the Challenge Cup. Jamie Farndale's got to be the kind of standout player for us this weekend. I think he scored 2 hat-tricks. So he's performing really well at the moment. We should get
Jamie Farndale on here. He's terrific. We've heard from him before, but he's got a lot going on off the park as well, and it'd be interesting to hear about his travels in the Sevens circuit.
The other news there was Spain beat New Zealand for the first time ever, Sevens. So the Spanish guys beat New Zealand, yeah.
It's a huge result, isn't
it? Big results. Was it Spain that beat Scotland last week in the playoff? Yeah, so it just shows you I suppose the inconsistency, as we keep saying about the Sevens. It's hard to be on your game the whole time, but certainly Spain beating New Zealand was a big upset.
Spain's a team as well that they featured in the full 15 World Cups in the past, but they've kind of fell away recently. So are they? Do you think they're maybe going down more of the Sevens route now, or?
I think a lot of countries will. We definitely need fewer players, and it's a game. I think that if you're looking to try and encourage people to come from other sports or work with Olympic sports or sprinters or runners or fitness or rowers, there's actually less technicalities to it. Obviously there's still scrums and lineouts, but not in the same degree. So a fit person who's maybe played a little bit of rugby, you could mould into a Sevens player quicker than a 15s player, and there's maybe with the Olympic dream attached to it as well. It's a big selling point. It's
probably an easier sport to build a fan base around as well. People coming to the game who don't have a huge amount of rugby knowledge will be able to pick up what's going on in a Sevens part quicker than they'll probably be able to do in a 15s part.
I think it's because it's exciting. So if you've never really watched a full rugby match, you go to a Sevens match, there's going to be tries. And not just one, and it's quick. It's 42 minutes long a game, and then you're on to the next fixture. But there's also a big party atmosphere attached to a Sevens tournament, which I think that attracts quite a lot of non-rugby fans to begin with. So
but a lot of Sevens tournaments happening in Scotland in the next few weeks now that the league fixtures are coming to a close, and again, to your point, they will be party atmospheres off the park as well.
Well, up next for the Scotland Sevens will be Hong Kong, both for the men's team and for the women's team, who will be heading out there in April. Lynn, just the girls well. How many of them do you think from the full 15 will maybe get a look in for the Sevens tour?
Yeah, there's quite a few who are in the current 15s programme who will probably cross over into the Sevens. But we've also got a couple of other players kind of dotted around the world. You've got Ailey Sinclair, who's over in Australia just now, who's just finished or has just started taking part in the Super W competition. So there's a possibility that she could come in. And then you've also got Liz Musgrove, who's out in Hong Kong anyway. So she might join up with the team as well. So I think they've got a good opportunity, and it's pretty exciting for them to go to a tournament like that.
Let's just look at some news now. So a squad update. Unfortunately, Tommy, Blair and Hoggy have all been ruled out, and the injury list has grown bigger and bigger for us, unfortunately, in this Six Nations. But there's a few players coming in. Rudy Jackson will come back into the mix, and Stein at Glasgow. One player I've watched in particular, Stein, I think he's a player with a lot of potential. Moss, I know we've talked about him before, but he came from the Sevens background as well, didn't he? So what type of player is he?
Yeah, he came over from South Africa in Sevens programme, Scottish ancestry. He's a big guy physically. He's big, he's imposing, he's great in the air, but he's desperately quick. Quite like big guys are quick, but they're not quick into run. He's got his fast feet. He could distribute, he could strike run. He's great under the high ball. He's He's a talent. He's a talent, and it's good to see him getting his opportunity to train with the national squad and included. And we'll definitely see more of him in the future. I think.
Yeah, I didn't know too much about him. He obviously signed for Glasgow recently, and then he's played in the last couple of matches for them. And I think he's been a bit of a standout. He's strong. He gets involved, carries quite a lot, which you maybe wouldn't see of a lot of Sevens players within a 15s match. So I was really impressed by him. Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see what Team Gregor picks for the match with England this weekend in the Guinness Six Nations. Finally, just last bit of news, I just want to touch on it because it was again a great occasion for Doddy at the weekend. It was his final day hosting in his hospitality here at BT Murrayfield. We all know Doddy well. I think it was a great send-up, a great occasion for the big man, wasn't it?
It was brilliant. I did 25 minutes with him in the Thistle, and then he came into the business club and he did a bit on stage as well. He was more full of nonsense than he even normally is. He had a great time and made sure it was a celebration, and everybody bought into that. And you know, it was another special day, as you mentioned, to play for the Doddy World Cup. The cheque presentation at half time, £156,000 presented by both Scottish Rugby Union and the Welsh Rugby Union. It shows enormous support that is behind him, and it truly has been it's inspirational to see the way he's conducting and carrying himself. Although it was his last game on stage, he's going to be here as a guest, and he's made that point. He's going to be sitting down enjoying himself and making everybody else do the work.
One more thing before we go. This weekend, a huge game for Scotland in the final round of the Guinness Six Nations. England away from home, the last game of the tournament, last game on Super Saturday. You know, what are your guys' memories of some of the best results you've had against the old enemy?
It's a special place to go and play. It's a tough place to go and play. Funnily enough, my best memory of playing at Twickenham was in a Barbarian shirt and not in a Scotland jersey. We've not won there since 1983. But you challenge yourself against the best. Now it'll be really interesting to see what happens Ireland, Wales in the build up to the England-Scotland game, because that'll add a wee bit to it.
I liked playing at Twickenham. I think you asked most Scottish fans, they say, oh, it must be horrible. I just loved it because you had 80 minutes of opportunity to empty yourself and commit yourself entirely to the cause and try and do something special. I never won in there. Had a few good games. One of them was 2005. It was the last game of the Six Nations that year as well, and the championship I think had already been won, so it was almost wasn't nothing riding on it in terms of championship points for Scotland or England, and it actually freed the game up, and I think it ended up 44-31 or something. It was quite similar circumstances to this week leading up being the last game, but Scotland focus on themselves. England will do what England do. They're a hard team. They're probably one of the best teams in the world. They'll be hurting from last year. We'll be hurting from 2 years ago, but you have to look at it as an 80 minutes opportunity.
And after this, the attention will then turn to the, believe it or not, the World Cup. A huge year for Scottish rugby. A chance for us to kick on in that tournament. And look, the last chance for the players to show what they can do in a Scotland jersey before the initial squad is announced. You would expect that the vast majority, if not all of the guys who are involved at the weekend, will be involved in that initial squad. But with the injuries we have, it might give an opportunity for somebody like a Rory Jackson to come into the team and put his hand up for the World Cup. But yeah, it's going to be it's a massive year. There's an awful lot of pro rugby still to be played as well. We've got 2 quarter-finals in Europe and ideally 2 playoff positions in the Pro 14 as well. Thank you very much for listening to the official Scottish Rugby podcast. Don't forget to rate and subscribe to this podcast on whatever platform you're listening to. We'll be back next week with more exclusive content.